Hello and welcome to the Modern Compliance Podcast, the podcast where we talk about hot topics in the compliance industry and we share stories of other compliance experts who are going through the exact same things as you. So let's see what today's hot topic is. Hello and welcome to the Modern Compliance Podcast. In this podcast, I'll be interviewing Ian Gregory about indoor air quality and how this industry is changing. Ian Gregory is an indoor air quality professional. He owns IAQ Services, which specializes in HVAC and indoor air quality services. Ian is also the Ventilation Hygiene Group Chair, hopefully I've got that right, Ian, of the Building Engineering Services Association, also known as BESA, and the Eastern Counties region. I've known Ian since the very earliest days of our surveying app, Flow Mobile Surveying. In 2020, Ian approached us to see if our software could be used for fire dampers and kitchen extract inspections, which was a blessing in disguise. We were very fortunate to meet Ian when we did. At the time, our app couldn't do any of that, but with Ian's help, we quickly adapted the software to those new industries. During our first demo call, I remember that a giant seagull perched outside our office window and started squawking like crazy. I had to apologize to Ian, walk over and close the window. It was a funny icebreaker at the time. Ian, I know you've been following in your father's footsteps. Yeah. Can you tell me a bit about your background in HVAC and indoor air quality?
So I left school and joined the army in the 90s. But at all time, my father was kind of in the ventilation HVAC contract cleaning industry, and he decided to set up a new ductwork cleaning division. So while I was in the army and when I left the army, I decided to come along and help him. For lack of anything else to do, to be honest, just fell in love with it. The air quality side, the job satisfaction of being able to look behind you at the end of a hard night's work and see that you've cleaned a load of ductwork. It was very satisfying, shall we say? And it was the dawn of the industry. There was not many people in the country doing it, so it was quite exciting.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just cleaning, right? It's this fire safety we're talking about. So grease causes fires when ductwork is
So we've worked really hard as an industry to kind of not move away from the cleaning tag, because I think the cleaning tag is important, and but is to bring the fire safety to the forefront of what we do as an industry. It's a fire safety task, not a cleaning task.
Yeah. And I know your company goes out to actually inspect other companies' work and make sure they're doing it properly, sort of thing. So it's more on the inspection side than that you don't do any cleaning yourself nowadays, do you?
No.
Yeah,
no.
Interesting. So I know you've worked in the HVAC industry for 25 years since leaving the British Army. I'm sure you've seen lots of changes over that time, and I'd like to discuss the compliance landscape and any industry changes that you've noticed. What has changed most in the compliance industry and the building safety sort of areas in the last sort of few years?
I think the technology is a big one, certainly. Technology's changed massively. People's awareness has changed a lot as well since Grenfell and since COVID. And also legislation. We've had some big changes in legislation with the fire safety orders and the building safety acts. They've been the biggest changes within the industry, certainly.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of change. I imagine over 25 years, that's the dawn of the industry to now when people are starting to take notice.
Yeah, it was pretty Wild West back in the early 90s, certainly, all the way through to now, where we're still struggling, to be honest. But it's changing. It's definitely changing. People's awarenesses have changed as well.
Do you still get cowboys in the industry out of interest?
Yeah. Hence why I'm in business.
Yeah.
The auditing side of the business is going strong. With people still delivering stuff that isn't up to standard and isn't up to scratch. So that's where we sit within the industry on the auditing side, anyway. Certainly, yeah.
Got you. Do you think that building managers, duty holders are becoming more aware of their responsibilities, or is there still a knowledge gap?
There's certainly still a knowledge gap, and I think it's always the building managers that have a trade, a specialist task, know about their trade a lot more than some of the wider tasks that they need to know about. But yeah, certainly since COVID and since Grenfell Tower, then they're a lot more aware of what their statutory and mandatory duties are as a building manager. yeah, 100%.
Now I know that sort of compliance tends to get, chucked down the pecking order when it's the last thing a lot of people want to do, in the sense that, or at least this is what I've heard anecdotally, it's not a revenue generator for a business. It's the compliance is something that kind of is tagged on later. So Ian, having been in the industry for 25 years, if you could click your fingers and make one change in the industry, what would it be?
To have a real clear legislative regulatory framework that we can work to. I know we've been working quite hard on our air quality template with Flow, and we've kind of both found it infuriating that there's lots of different conflicting standards and best practices to work to have a very clear guideline on what to follow, one or two that we can just pick and benchmark against.
I'm 100% on board with that one. We must have looked through so many standards trying to work that one out.
It's what we love about Flow, is that you spend the time to more about our industry than some of the people within our industry. Thanks, which I think is brilliant.
Well, we, Mark, who's a very technical sort of member of our team, me and Mark must have spent days pouring through them and trying to work them out. And what you tend to find when you look through the standards is there's like all sorts of inconsistencies as well, and you're like, hang on, is this me, or is this the standard? Like we've actually ended up writing to a few of the sort of the governing bodies, and I think you've got a problem here. This doesn't seem right.
It's conflicting, and it's infuriating because building managers tend to just want a black and white, very yes no answer, and the answers to everybody's dreams in the compliance industry is yes, no, depends, maybe. So a very clear regulatory framework where we can say yes, that's good, no, that's bad, would be a huge bonus for our industry, certainly.
Yeah, I can understand that. So in indoor air quality, does the BS 40102, does that cover a lot of this then?
It does. So the British standard sets out some clear benchmarks, but it also puts a lot of vagary into the industry as well. It's quite, you've read 40102, you understand it's not the easiest document to navigate sometimes, and there are some conflictions in there. I'd like to take it one step further and have a published table of clear benchmarks for certain parameters that is just easy to navigate and easy to work to.
Yeah, I can understand that. We ended up taking some information, I can't remember if it was light or noise from various other sources, because it wasn't obvious. The other thing I found about the BS, just talking about that standard, the BS 4102, is that it seemed like it was like survey driven, a lot of it. So, there's an overall score, which is supposed to sort of attain, right, for a building. But I was wondering how much of that is actually practical.
It's virtually not practical at all. It's building managers don't particularly want surveyors talking to their staff, certainly interrupting them, letting them know what's going on, but also it's time consuming, and it's quite difficult, and it's subjective. That's what they're looking for, a subjective view, and I think probably a data driven view is the more practical route to go. We know what most people think a comfortable temperature and humidity is. We can monitor for that and adjust for it. There'll always be opposing views, I suppose, but to spend a lot of time interviewing people on their personal view on what the thermal comfort or how comfortable the building is, I think it takes a lot of time for not a lot of gain. Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah, when I was reading through it, I was like, this is great. I in a sort of ideal world, I can't see how much of it's actually practical though.
No.
That's kind of backed up some of my assumptions. I'm glad we got that one right.
A lot of building managers still work the way they've always worked. It's just get somebody in, do it as cheap as possible, and tick a box and get them out as quickly as possible. They don't want us spending hours talking to their staff and things.
Yeah, interesting. So in your sort of ideal world, it's sort of one standard which just brings it all together and lays out the different parameters and the ranges and things like that. Yeah. That's what we want too.
Yeah.
Does that make our jobs a lot easier?
Let's make it happen.
So let's talk about the day-to-day life of a surveyor, I suppose, in your industry. I expect you're not on the tools as much as you used to be.
Yeah.
But when you or one of your team's out inspecting, whether it's fire dampers, kitchen extract inspections, or indoor air quality, what are the most common problems you tend to come across?
we're often at the end of the chain of let's take a ventilation system. We're at the end of the chain of its life. So there's lots of people who have been hands-on with it before we have. So I'm specifically talking here about design of the system and accessibility. So competencies before we get to it mean that often we are not able to be able to carry out our job or our task, and it's infuriating for us, and I know it's infuriating for building managers as well when we come back with a long list of can't access, don't know, through no fault of our own, when it should have been designed right. The legislations and the best practice documents all say it should be designed in a way that it can be managed and maintained, and it's just not happening in the built environment at the minute. That and the lack of end user knowledge, really. They've quite often been told they need to get something done. They don't know why they need to get it done, so they just tick in a box, which can be quite infuriating. Yeah, so,
I can imagine that's very frustrating. Yeah. And ductwork and air ventilation systems, I guess they're often out of sight, and therefore a contractor can come in, mess something up, and people aren't any the wiser.
Yeah, to take the passive fire part of the business, for instance, is you have this stuff called fire stopping, and it needs inspected on a regular basis. I won't bore you with it, but we can inspect it, and then the next day somebody can come through and drill a big hole in it, and then nobody will look at it again for another year, leaving that building exposed. So it can be quite infuriating. It can be quite...
So pardon my ignorance, fire stopping, I know like with fire dampers, that would be the sort of seal around it sort of thing, like the actual material around the fire damper?
It's the seal around the hole that the ductwork and the fire damper sits in a wall. So you can put the damper in, but you need to then seal that hole up. Mm-hmm. Somebody can tamper with that seal, with good intentions, drilling a Cat 6 cable or something like that through the wall to run an alarm system or some lighting, and then not make good that hole again, making the fire damper probably useless.
So I'm guessing a bit of polyfiller around the fire damper isn't going to...
Not anymore. In the good old days, possibly, but expanding foam was always the one in our industry. Squirt a bit of expanding foam or silicone in there and we're good to go. But no, they're all kind of certified systems now. We're trying to tighten down on that as an industry, certainly.
Got you. And it's my understanding as well that if there is a hole in the wall or so it's been modified in some way, you might actually have to just like take it back to the original standard and like just I guess take that wall down and replace it.
Yeah. If you don't know what the product is, you can't mix and match products, really and truly. So we would rather remove it and start again with products that we know work together and have been tested to work together.
And specifically with things like fire dampers, Ian, this is just my interest really, like are things kind of like installed to a specific standard and like documentation where you then have to make sure that standard's maintained?
Yeah. So there's been quite a few changes in the industry recently. So BESA have produced or updated their guidance to fire damper installation. It's called DW145, and that they've added extra levels of inspection into dampers specifically to try and match some of the other compliance related industries like fire doors and the like. So we're looking for this, the construction industry is looking for this golden thread of information. So from its design phase all the way through to the management, the maintenance phase, the life of that piece of equipment is monitored. The information is held on it. So when we get to our hands on a fire damper 2 or 3 years old and we come to do its first inspection, then we don't know a lot about that damper. All we can see is what's in front of us. What we're trying to change in the industry is that all of that information is on file for us, so we can look at the type of damper, the manufacturer and the model, how it was installed, why it was chosen, what kind of wall type it's gone into, and then our industry can then just pick up the last few bits of making sure it works properly and the fire stopping is in good condition. So we're missing all of that early piece of information at the minute. That's the big change that's coming. We've kind of best practice now is to hold all of that information on each damper, So we'll start to see some big changes in fire safety because of that.
Interesting. So you call this the golden thread? You
Yeah.
said, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I have to look into that. I mean, I've heard this anecdotally through a few people. You know, they have to be able to track the manufacturer's specs in order to kind of see how it should be nowadays.
Yeah, because it's not us that decide how the damper's installed into the wall. It's called a tested fitting detail, and the manufacturer will test it to make sure it works. And they'll test that in an independent testing facility and devise the tested fitting details, basically instructions on how to fit them. The ductwork installer or us as a company will fit the damper to the wall using that tested fitting detail, and then fire stop it. It's then very difficult after the fact, once it's all been fire stopped and installed, for somebody else to come in and see if it's been installed correctly, because it's covered in fire stopping. So we're trying to gather all of that information before we come along and test it in a retroactive environment.
So these are the kind of like structured tests you see in like a fire station yard with like the sort of the little setups, and then they sort of blast them with fire and see what happens. Kind of
they're UCAS accredited testing facilities. They've got big furnaces and big rooms that they can heat up to thousands of degrees, and they basically make a fake installation. They'll make a fake wall or make a fake ceiling or a fake floor, install the dampers, test them quite a few times, and then take all of that data and decide whether to give it its UKCA certification so that it can be sold into Europe and the UK, and then devise the installation instructions, I suppose, for want of a better word. There's a lot goes on that a lot of the industry doesn't realise.
It's a lot more involved than I thought it was even. So that's really fascinating. And this golden thread and this kind of like where you're trying to get to is fascinating to me. So Ian, with all your experience in the industry, if you could give surveyors one piece of advice, one golden nugget for making compliance inspections smoother, what would it be?
Be invisible.
Okay, you'll have to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, so it was a very short one-word answer, or two-word answer. But be invisible. Try not to put any barriers towards your clients for you to being on site and doing that inspection. Be as quiet as possible, as non-intrusive as possible. Get on with your job in as safe a manner as possible without having to keep asking your client for X, Y, and Z. I tend to find, having done thousands of inspections over the years, that worked really well for me. Well, I think as a human, as a person, as somebody that's got a task to do, I think you quite often fall into the trap of thinking that I'm really important to this building manager, whereas in reality he or she got 1,001 things to deal with and think about. PPM tasks, planned preventative maintenance tasks to worry about and plan and to think of. Air quality is just one small part of that. So if we can get in, do our job and get out with as minimum fuss as possible, that tends to go down really well with building managers and FMs. I
can imagine. So these are probably working buildings with people in, you don't want too much disturbance. Just be invisible, I like that. So let's talk about technology. Obviously this is close to my heart. I'm always keen to understand where technology can solve some of the problems, specifically like the industry's hair on fire problems. With our app Flow Mobile Surveying, we want to solve the problem of reports taking hours to create, which and we knew we could make software to speed this process up. I want to chat about the impact and opportunities of technology when it comes to indoor air quality. So how do you see technology like digital reporting tools, apps, and artificial intelligence changing how compliance inspections are carried out?
I think AI is going to play a huge part in the industry. We're already seeing AI QCing and checking compliance reports. So one of our customers employs AI to is that the right word? They use AI to look at various different compliance related reports to benchmark them against current standards and whether or not they're covering what they need to cover, but also information gathering as well. They can work out how much wire is in the building just by going through people's reports and using fancy algorithms. So I think there's some exciting times coming. I think that using AI to make sensible suggestions benchmark off of some clear parameters will be a game changer. So if we've got X parameter and Y parameter, then I think the best course of action would be Z.
Yeah, I can already think of some great use cases there. That's amazing stuff. So I guess you could say, like, look at these 10 FM reports. Tell me what the biggest priority is. If we've got a budget of X, what should we be prioritizing?
Yeah, 100%. He's taking some of the kind of personal opinion out of reporting and some of the bias, and just having an artificial intelligence work what the best practice would be out. Yeah, certainly.
I think we can call them employees. My wife actually has a Sintra, and it's just basically the skin on ChatGPT. Well, that's what I say anyway. She disagrees, but. Yeah, a little army of kind of AI chaps sort of telling you what's what. I think that's kind of where we're going, isn't it?
I use AI constantly, throughout my daily life now. So it's not a replacement for a human, certainly, but it's a tool. If you look at it as a tool, then you've seen our AirThings air quality monitors. It's not AI, but it is remote monitoring, and there is a small amount of AI built into the dashboard functionality, which RAG rates, the red, amber, green rates, the air quality as the live data's coming in. So in its very simplest form, AI can carry out a very useful function like that.
And I can imagine also, tell me if I'm wrong, you might sort of put a report in there and say, is this report compliant?
Yeah. That
following
can
the
happen.
standard.
That can happen now. I mean, we don't do that, but only because we don't use a package that can do that. But that technology can do that now. Yeah.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah, you get someone in, you're not sure if they've done a good job or if they've done things to the British standard or whatever. I guess you could use that in that way. Brilliant. So I know that you're involved with AirThings, so you use that in your work. AirThings is, from my understanding, it's like an air monitoring system, which gives you real-time analytics of the things that are happening within a building. So sensors like that and smart building systems are becoming more common. Will they ever replace manual inspections, or will humans always be needed?
I think humans will always be needed. The way to look at sensors is that they are an extremely good early warning system. So we can gather constant 24/7 data, and then once we've got that data, we can use it and extrapolate it and then decide whether to send a human in to do different monitoring, because the sensors will only monitor certain parameters. Sometimes it would call for different type of monitoring depending on what the sensors pick up. We're seeing sensors being used in grease extract systems now, so it can measure the very geeky, it can measure the thickness of grease, but only in certain locations. So as an early warning, we can look at the thickness of grease, and if it's becoming a risk, then send a human in there, one of our surveyors, to look at the rest of the system to see if that's showing the same level of cleanliness.
Amazing. So I'm testing my TR19 knowledge here. So this would be looking for things like hotspots then, so over 500 microns kind of range. Yeah,
so the sensors go in at the TR19 locations, which are quite limited. Our surveyors generally look at every single part of the system. So we use the data from those TR19 locations, and then if we feel like it needs a more thorough inspection, then we would send one of the team in.
So in that respect, the inspectors will always be needed, but it's more that you're trying to get ahead of these problems.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just have an early warning and then deal with it when we get the warning signs coming in.
Amazing stuff. And from a sustainability point of view, is it better for companies to install these kind of sensors? Does it save them money?
I would say so. Whether or not it saves money or not is open to question at the minute, because they're still relatively new. But certainly we're getting more data. The traditional way to do air quality would be for one of our surveyors to come to site once a year, do half a dozen locations or whatever per floor, with thousands of pounds worth of highly calibrated equipment. The more modern way, using the AirThings sensors, is we get 24/7 data. 24/7 data across the whole of the building or series of buildings that an FM manager or a building manager can look at all of the buildings across his estate, look at all of the data in real time for similar costs, maybe possibly a bit more. So that's where I see the benefit. We can, for the sustainability, we can take that data and input it into the building's BMS system, the building management system, and decide then whether to open and close windows, or ramp up the air conditioning, or make it colder, make it warmer. There's too much CO2, so we need to fire the system up a bit more in that meeting room, and it stops having to send surveyors around the country, burning diesel and making particulates. And so for a company that deals with air quality, I drive an EV, and to turn up to site in a diesel burning van, the optics on that isn't great, and it kind of goes against what we are as a company. So to be able to use sensors and not have to send a person on a regular basis is a no-brainer for me, certainly.
So saving those unnecessary trips.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining now all of these sensors in buildings feeding data back in real time. It kind of reminds me of, there's a chap that I know, he's got a 3D printing business, it's a bit of a tangent. And he basically sleeps in a room surrounded by these 3D printers, and you can hear every time one of them goes slightly wrong. He knows all the little sounds they make, and he goes and quickly repairs them in the middle of the night. I can imagine you sort of sitting in your office just surrounded by all this information, just like screens and monitors. Is it like that?
Information overload. I think you can choose to look at it if you want to. I think you would go mad if you looked at it 24/7. Certainly, for your chat with the 3D printers, I'd recommend some Airthings VOC monitors, because plastic produces volatile organic compounds.
Ah, there you go. So tell me more on technology. What's the most helpful technology that you see and you use daily in your work right now?
This sounds really cheesy, but Flow, certainly. Flow's made the biggest impact on us as a business. When I was on site self-delivering a lot of the audits, I would need to devote 1 or 2 days a week to report writing. Now we spend less than half a day a week QCing reports and getting them out, and also the speed of turnaround as well. Our clients have kind of got used to us having a sort of 24-hour turnaround on a lot of our reporting, which we'd never have been able to do in the old Excel, Word days, certainly. So thank you for that. I'm glad you.
Hey, I wasn't sort of fishing for a plug there, but yes, I do appreciate it.
But it genuinely is that, and the kind of Airthings, are the two big ones for us. But certainly Flow.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks, Ian. And do you think technology like surveying apps, digital reporting, or sensors is making life generally easier for compliance professionals, or is it adding like new challenges, I suppose?
It's making our life easier, and I just wished the sort of zeitgeist within the industry would be that more people to take up on these sensors. It will come, but when people see the benefits of them, certainly. But it makes our life a lot easier. We can just look at a screen and see what the data is without having to send somebody there. It's game changing.
Just thinking about that purely from a business perspective, like, is you installing sensors limiting the amount of work that you do? Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't have to send people out as often, therefore your contract value is smaller. Just a point of curiosity.
Yeah, it's slightly different. So we ended up, that part of the business has become an equipment supplying business, but also there's monthly or yearly rentals on the equipment for the data part of it. But also it frees us up to do the more manual labour, like the auditing, for instance, at the shopping centres we work at and the motorway services that we work at. They're very labour intensive. We've been able to focus on sending people to site to do that, and not having to wander around the building looking at air quality. So it's just having both streams running at the same time quite efficiently. So
it sounds to me like it's freeing you up to do the more important, high value tasks that you're not just doing the mundane, checking is this still okay? You've eliminated some of those jobs. Yeah,
air quality is traditionally quite low turnover and quite labour intensive. We'd need to spend, have a surveyor on site all day, where we can now have just the equipment on site doing it while our surveyor is off doing another task, earning another income from.
Got you. Wow, the future sounds like it's crazy in the air quality industry. So I can like going back to what you said before, there's obviously been a lot of changes, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what comes next. Do you think there's a danger, Ian, of information overload for clients? Like if I was presented with a big monitor with all this real-time data, I might not know what to make of it. Is that a danger for clients, just giving people access to this real-time information, that they just get overloaded with it?
I think so. I mean, the benefits of Air Things is that they have got access to all of the data whenever they want it, and I think certainly we've worked really hard with Flow and IAQ to change the templates of our report, so all the pertinent information, the important information is at the very beginning of the report. It's laid out in a sensible way. It's RAG rated, red, amber, green, so that even if you're not an industry expert, you can look at one of our reports and say, okay, that's good, that's bad, and then have very sensible short form recommendations straight afterwards to determine what the next course of action needs to be, rather than our old style reports, which I'm sure you loved. All of the information was at the back of the report, and all of the boring legislation stuff was at the beginning of the report, so you'd have to fish through all of the information to get to what you actually needed to do. So that's been a big game changer for us and our clients.
So you're saying, technology might be better, you might be getting more information, but it's really just a case of simplifying it for the client, making it as easy as possible.
Basically, because don't forget, they're experts. They're trying to be experts in all of the different trades that they have to deal with, and they can't. So it's just I can't give them 25 years worth of knowledge in short form. So I just need to make it very succinct and very easy for them to understand, and that's what Flow's helped us to do.
Well, particularly on the reporting side, one of my pet frustrations is when surveyors tend to use like complicated acronyms, which everyday people just have no idea about.
Our industry loves VOCs and certainly.
Just confuse the reader as much as possible. Yes. So I'm all for simplicity. If you had unlimited money and resources and you could invent one new gadget or tool that would transform inspections, and by the way, I know you've already got a tool for fire damper inspections and making them easier. Yeah. Well, what would this fancy new gadget with unlimited resources be?
I'm going to go for nanobots. We can get nanobots into the ductwork, and they can go around and inspect the ductwork all from one spot, while our chap can take the data and then call them all back and then go on to the next site. That would be amazing.
Nanobots assemble. Nanobots. I think we've talked about this before, didn't we? You said that the dream is to be on a chalet somewhere. You've got your army of autonomous duct inspecting robots. Is this an advancement of that? They're now smaller nanobots, right?
Yeah, more manageable.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about the trends and the future of the industry. I know you do a lot of training for things like fire dampers, and do you do indoor air quality training as well?
A little bit, and ventilation hygiene, and I'm involved in some of the things that are going on in the background, determining what competency is in our industries and the like.
Finger on the pulse, yeah. So I know you do a lot of that training and are involved in discussions around standards and industry changes. As someone who's quite prominent within the industry, people know who you are, and obviously your father, Alan, helped to write the TR19 standard as well. I'm sure you love being in your father's footsteps or his shadow. But now you are the person that a lot of people take notice of. I'd love to hear about your take on current and future trends. If this was a training session for people in your industry, what current and future trends would you be bringing their attention to?
I would say there's a real, since the Building Safety Act was brought into the UK this year, there's been a real need and a proof to prove competency, not only as an individual. I'm very good at doing my job, and here's the proof that I am very good at doing my job, but also as an organisation, as a company. So to prove organisational competency and individual competencies is overarching at the minute, with a real big drive to increase the skills and standards within our industry. So that's very important. There's now a legal requirement to be competent to do the task that you've been set to do. And if you're not competent, then you shouldn't be entering into that task.
Got you. And is that a bit of a diversion from how it was before?
Yeah, certainly. It's trying to drive that cowboy element out of the industry, and it's not that we weren't competent before. It's just that we weren't able to demonstrate that competency.
So indoor air quality and mold, I know have been getting more attention recently within the industry. Why do you think these issues are moving up the agenda now? I mean, I know a few reasons, but I'd love to hear your take on that.
We've had COVID, which was a huge eye opener to our industry, and a lot of people that didn't really care about air quality now suddenly do care about air quality, quite rightly. In the mould world, shall we say, we've had a few high-profile deaths and a few incidences recently that the press and the media have put out, and that's led to our ABS law being introduced in October, which gives social landlords and other organisations 24 hours to deal with high-profile black mould issues, or at least to have some attendance. And we're trying to get rid of the cowboy sort of landlord element as well as the cowboy contracting element in the industry. So there's some of the biggest changes that I've seen recently.
Yeah, and I'm particularly interested to see how AWAB's law pans out just in general, because I know like with mold in particular, moisture is the enemy, right? Yeah. So it's not just, you've got some mold there, you can't just paint over it. It's often like a ventilation issue or some sort of like a leak or something within the building, that's causing it. The issue, and I presumably those are expensive problems to fix, So I can imagine cash-strapped social housing providers are probably wondering also how this is going to kind of work in the future, but that's a whole other conversation topic, I think.
Certainly, yeah.
And do you think people are more health conscious now, or just in general? People don't drink as much, they don't smoke as much, so they think about what the air they breathe more?
Yeah, 100%. I think the younger generation, not my generation certainly, but the younger generation are a lot more aware of their health. I think we've discussed before when we're looking at the air quality template is that we generally, there we go, on cue, we drink 1 or 2 litres of clean water a day, and we wouldn't ever scoop a glass of water from a puddle outside. That's we all know that's crazy.
My daughter might.
Yeah, your daughter might, and yeah, my granddaughter certainly would. But we breathe in 11,000 litres of air. And the general member of Joe Public would never think about the quality of the air that they're breathing in. If we go to the gyms, like a lot of the younger generation do, then we're breathing in multiples of that, 60-odd thousand litres of air, rather than 11. So it's a huge impact on health. For the younger generation.
And it's easy to think about things like this that you can see that you're putting in your body, but you don't think about air because you don't see it.
No, you don't see it. I do, because that's my job, but the general, again, Joe Public, you don't see it. It's outside, it's out of minds, it's just all pervasive, it's always there.
And I know part of your job with the indoor air quality inspections, Ian, is to detect the things like forever particles, as they're known, so things that get lodged in your lungs and your bloodstream, and they're there for all time, sort of thing.
Yeah, people think of air quality as just being, pollution, gases and diesel and that kind of thing, but it's also microplastics that are coming off of car tyres, and so living in an inner city environment, not only are you dealing with vehicle particulates that are carcinogenic, we're also looking at forever particles like the microplastics from car tyres and lorry tyres are equally as important, and we're still very early stages of understanding what impact that has on the human body.
And are these the PM 2.5s, like the tiny little
sort of particles? They're some of the really smaller PM1s, and PM 2.5s are really tiny particles that you really can't see. You can see the bigger ones in the air, but the really small ones you can't at all.
The tiny particulate matter, you wouldn't even know that was in the air.
No, and your body can't capture it. So your body can capture, through the nose, it can capture, it filters it out. It can capture some of the bigger particles, but not the smaller ones.
So looking ahead, Ian, What do you think will be the biggest change in how compliance inspections are carried out over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think there's, like we discussed earlier in the pod, a huge shift towards using AI, using remote sensors, and then sense checking them with a human eye on the data. That will speed things up, make it more cost effective, which I'm all for. I'd rather lots more cheaper access to more information than costly, not very often, inspections and surveys.
I think you've mentioned something there which I agree with, like the human element's always going to be important, like, or at least until some of these hallucinations have gone from AI, right? So like you often ask AI a question and it'll say with absolute certainty that something's true, and then when you go and research it, hang on a second, that's not true. So you always need that, at least now you need that human element for sure. Is there anything that you're really excited about in your industry? And
the introduction of some mould standards we're working on as an industry at the minute, it really excites me because of the introduction of our ABS law, we don't have these clear benchmarks, like I think we've discussed before. And so we're working on that as an industry. We've managed to introduce AI and technology into that mould testing environment and industry. Again, sense checked by a human mycologist, but we've got no clear benchmarks to say what's good and what's not good at the minute. So we're working really hard as an industry to develop those benchmarks.
So you mentioned that AI as a testing and analytical tool. Is this looking at like lab samples, like samples, and actually analysing them? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so we take an air sample, or we can take a surface sample using the machine, and send those samples off to the lab, and the lab uses then AI to look at all the individual different mould spores, for want of a better word, and different 10 or 12 different dust particulates. It can photograph them, it can count them, it can tell you what they are really cheaply, really quickly, and get that information back to us then, that we can then decide what to do with that information. Because we can test for 100 and odd different moulds, but there's only a few that we really need to work on, and it's looking at that, seeing what those levels are, and then coming up with a sensible remedial plan to put it right. And I think that's key. It's cheap, quick, easy access for landlords, so we can get mould dealt with really quickly, and not having a massive cost barrier to it.
Yeah, anything that brings the costs down, makes things more accessible is always good, isn't it? And I've heard another use case for AI is if you take a photograph of like something within a room, it could say with sort of relative certainty, yeah, that's mold, it's not grease or dust or something like that. So it could actually give you a good idea of like what you're looking at, which I think is pretty fascinating as well. So I just want to wrap up. I've always been impressed, Ian, by how you treat your staff. Every time I sort of see you on LinkedIn, you treat your staff and your suppliers well, at least from the outside looking in, and you seem to have a great value system as well. I assume your clients also feel really looked after. Since we've met, I feel like you've been on a bit of a growth journey, both in business and on a personal level. After growing the business from, I think, around about 5 staff when we met to about 33 now, I think you said, how has that changed you as a businessman and generally as a person?
Yeah, hugely. I think when we first started, it was a very small family company. We had myself and my wife and my father and my brother-in-law working for us. Now with 33 people, when you bring in their wider family into the mix, then there's over 100 people that are reliant on the senior leadership team to make the business work. So there was a huge realization last year that okay, we need to make sure that this does work. That led me to get some business coaching and to make me the best leader that I could be, and then that led me onto a journey of trying to personally make myself healthier and fitter, and having grandkids has led to that as well. So and I think that's also helped some of my staff look and see the kind of personal journey that I've been on with my weight loss and health, and decided to try and emulate that, or at least work towards making themselves healthier and fitter.
That's incredible, Ian. Yeah, and do you think that journey you've been on is kind of inspiring others to also kind of step up a little bit as well?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly. Yeah. Yeah.
So, because I guess you began as a bit more of a family run business, right? Or as a more family, I guess, than now, because you've got 33 members of staff. I can't imagine
I've
you've
run
got that
out of
many
family and friends to employ. So
yeah, you ran out of family.
Yeah.
I mean, we did the same. To be fair, we hired friends and family to begin with, and then now it's taken on a bit of a different kind of beast. It's a different beast. It's taken on a different world of its own. But yeah, that's an amazing journey, Ian. I'm really impressed. Can you tell me about your future plans and how people can reach you and work with you?
Well, you can always reach us on our website, iaqservices.co.uk. We're always looking for engineers and for staff members, because we are growing. We're not, we're going to try and stabilise a wee bit. We're having 50% year on year kind of growth over the last few years, but we're still growing. We're still doing what we do well. We're looking at bringing younger people into the industry. The industries are looking at apprenticeships around our industry. So, that's where we'll be in the next few years, still doing what we're doing, maybe employing more AI, more technology, but certainly just doing what we do better and more of.
Brilliant. Well, for any viewers or listeners, go work for Ian. He's a fantastic guy.
Thank you.
So thanks for your time today, Ian. I really appreciate it. And all the best in your future endeavours.
Thanks for having me. I've loved it. Thank you.
Cheers, man. Thanks for listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this content. I hope you got something out of it. If you know anyone else who is affected by this topic, please forward this on to them. If you've got a hot topic you'd like to discuss, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Let's keep this conversation going, and we'll see you next time.